You're listening to Stellar Success, Leveling Up for Medical Pros with Dr. Tudor Francu. Join us as we explore how medical professionals can achieve stellar success in all areas of life. It's time to level up.
Dr. Kluttz, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Thanks for coming over. Um, let's just start with a little bit of an overview of your career and tell us how you started and what are you now?
Absolutely. So, my initial training is in family medicine, board certified family medicine. I've been in practice post residency for about 11 years, almost 11 and a half years. And I started out doing small community ER. That's kind of what I always wanted to do. It's something that my dad did, and I kind of grew up in this medical house where my mom and my dad both worked in the ER. So, I started out doing that for the first couple of years. But during my senior year of residency, I rotated with a physician who was actually doing a part-time evening law program. And it always piqued my interest when I was, kind of early on in my medical training, just because we talk so much about how healthcare is broken and there's so many different things to fix, and I guess I like to kind of be in a position where I can actively help fix. And
Hmm.
so a few years out of residency, I decided to go back to school. So I worked full time in the ER while going to law school part time.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Yeah, and I did that for 4 years. It's a 4-year program if you go part-time. And I got a concentration certificate in health law, in addition to the full JD. But of course, I finished in May of 2020, which of
Oh,
course was a wonderful year to finish law school. And since I was working full-time in the ED, that's pretty much what I did. I did some kind of freelance consulting and chart review. I never wanted to litigate, but I definitely wanted to be in a position where I could actively contribute to forming viable solutions to a lot of the healthcare system problems. And so for a few years, I continued to do the ER because nothing was moving, the first year and a half or so of COVID. And then this, other incredible opportunity kind of fell into my path of doing wound care because I was starting to get a little burned out with ER. I still love it. I still do it now. But just doing it full time, of course, after COVID was a lot. And so I was like, all right, I'll kind of look into this. And what piqued my interest was that it was a leadership position for medical directorship for a wound care clinic. But specifically, they wanted someone who would be able to contribute to the clinical excellence committees and some of those other things because they wanted it to be an innovative, advanced wound care situation. And it was a position that had not previously existed. So I got the chance to pave kind of what it looked like. And that opened the door tremendously to me moving from St. Louis, which is where I'm originally from, to Tampa because I ended up doing some pretty awesome research with the wound care clinic as their director, still working in the ER, PRN, on the weekends. And after we had internally published a diabetic foot ulcer study that we had done with advanced hyperbaric oxygen therapy, they were like, we'd love to see you do this on a bigger scale. How would you like to move to Tampa? Because we have 9 clinics that we need assistant director for. And I'm like, oh boy, okay. So I ended up getting transferred to Tampa, and I did that for a while, and I loved it. But like a lot of us, I think in medicine, you end up in a position where you're doing the work of 4 people. And because that position wasn't paved either, it was also another one that was created for me. It was I think it would have been better had I had, a counterpart or, at the very least been able to work with some nurse practitioners and PAs because I ended up, overseeing 9 clinics and I was in clinic myself 4 to 5 days a week. I was taking call. I was doing inpatient wound care consult rounds as well as outpatient wound care. I was supervising hyperbaric oxygen. I was coordinating call schedules. I was doing it all. And so, of course, after that is when I kind of jumped into the entrepreneurial pursuit because I realized that I was putting a lot of time and energy and effort into something that I love doing, but it was something building something for other people. And that growth, I couldn't see the growth. I was giving it everything I had, but I could not see the growth. And so then I decided, I'm like, you know what, now that I've kind of been a leader for a couple of years and I've had the chance to kind of mentor students and residents along the way, I thought I really kind of want an opportunity where I can change healthcare in a meaningful way that does not require moral injury or, does not require sacrificing so much of myself and my personal time where I can still be a good physician and still make meaningful change, which is when I shifted to the entrepreneurial piece of it. And so that's kind of what brought me to this point. What I do now is I still work in the ER. I think most of us that are ER docs are lifers. We never leave. We just, I go a couple times a month because I enjoy it. But on a full-time basis, I do telehealth and consulting. So I do consulting for my telehealth company. I'm a senior physician advisor for them. And then I also do leadership coaching, faith-based and non-faith-based, because faith is a big part of my life. And I also do like a legal chart review and legal consulting as well. So
Yeah.
definitely a multifaceted career, and it took me took me several years to kind of build it, but here I am.
No, definitely. I think it's very interesting the way you built up your career this way. And I think one of the important things here for people to understand is that, you're doing pretty well with your ER job at that point. And I think, most of the people would be like, well, I think I got my track. I can take more shifts. I can work whatever, however you want. But you did something different. You got out of your comfort zone a little bit and did this legal track, I would say. How does that component help you be more successful in medicine? Because I don't know many doctors who are doing any kind of like legal studies, to be honest with you. And we're kind of, I mean, if we think about our profession, um, we're not really friends with lawyers.
This is very true.
So how do
Very
you
true.
see this thing going?
You know, where most of my skills intersect in building systems, because it does make me more cognizant just as a provider, because I'm just hyper aware of making sure that my medical practice is legally sound as well as clinically appropriate. But more important than that to me, was to be able to be a part of meaningful positive change, which is why I'm so excited to be in the position that I'm in now, as an advisor, because at this point, it's we've all seen it as providers where you come to work, or you log in for the day, and there's a pop-up or a memo or a sticky note of some new change that just came through the pipeline that the C-suite discussed, without clinical input. And then you look at it and you're like, well, I get why they're doing that, but this is not the right way to do it. Like, that's not going to work in clinical practice. And you see that over and over again. And so now that's kind of where I see it, and that's where I spend a lot of my energy. Even in the advisor role that I'm in now, I'm on the AI ethics committee, because we know that AI and medicine have collided, and we also want to make sure that we're using it responsibly and appropriately. And so I'm the only physician on that committee, so that I can make sure that to give that fresh legal and clinical input whenever we're designing AI systems that our patients may interact with. I also participate in the clinical excellence committee, for my organization now and for the organizations that I've worked for previously, because when you're talking about providing good healthcare, we all get kind of lost in the mud of compliance and regulatory guidelines, and those things are important and have to be met, but we have to do it in such a way that we don't lose the trust and the faith of the providers that are sustaining the system. Because for some reason, quite often the providers are always sometimes with the last to know stuff, or they come up with this policy or this plan, and I'm like, you guys didn't talk to a single doctor when you developed this, did you?
Well, this is a
you
big
know?
issue today in
Yeah,
medicine. I think a lot of providers are turned off by those policies that are
yeah,
made by people they have no clue what medical contact with a patient means.
absolutely.
Um, and I've seen a lot of places in my practice also that are run by you know semi-clinician per people that have minimal contact with clinical medicine,
Right.
and they come and produce those policies and procedures manuals that they're very detailed,
Hmm.
but they're very restrictive.
Absolutely.
And I don't know any doctors honestly that are actually reading those policies and procedures manuals. And I wish I can get more input on this from you, because I think with your legal experience you can tell us what exactly should we do as doctors when somebody like this comes to us and say, this is the policy, you're not supposed to do this, or you do it this wrong, or whatever it is, because you have the experience
Yeah.
in both sides, right?
Absolutely. The way that I've always approached it, and honestly, I think the way that I've gotten to the position that I'm in now is because I always ask follow-ups. Like, I guess I am one of the docs that when they release a new policy, I'm like, this is not going to implement well at all. Like, and so I'm just one of those people that I will literally ask the question. I will ask the hard question to the tough group of people. And it's not always appreciated, especially when you're a physician. They want you to just go be a doctor. And I tell them, I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm a clinician first, but part of that is first do do no harm. And if you have a policy that is restricting my ability to provide the best care to my patient, then I have a lot to say about it. And I'm just kind of one of those people. So whenever they send out the emails or they send out the sticky notes, the memos, the whatever, the pop-ups in the EMR, I usually have a conversation with leadership. And I'm like, hey, this looks great. I see where we're going here. But have we considered this or have we considered that? Or, what did the chief medical officer say about this? Or, and 9 times out of 10, it's something that they drafted and, that poor person just signed off on it because they have 50 other things that they're doing. And so no one really is getting into the weeds of it. And I think that was just my interest. And so which is largely what I do a lot of now is policy drafting for my company. A lot of times I'll draft the base and then we truly employ a multidisciplinary approach where everyone that is affected by the policy needs to have input on the policy. And that creates policies that are solid, they are steady, they are protective, and they are patient forward.
Mhm.
And that's been my experience. So, I hate to say it, but I really am kind of like a squeaky wheel gets the grease kind of thing. It's like if I see it come across, I'm just not passive. I can't passively practice medicine. I feel like it's always an active thing for me, and that includes addressing the stuff behind the scenes as well as the things that are patient facing.
Yeah. I'm sure the way you are right now was influenced by the experiences you had along the way. And I wonder if you had anything that comes to mind that was not really going very well for you.
100%. That's the toughest $1 million question for me. And for me, it was when I was at the peak of my career. When I was probably making the most money with the biggest title, access to the most people. It was not going well just because the position itself it was not designed to be sustainable. And when I was like, hey, I'm okay with building this. I know that pain, growth requires pain, growing pain. So I'm okay with kind of, trudging along, but let's build this out together to make it make sense. And when your response is, well, we're going to table that. And I got to the point where the meeting agendas for a lot of our C-suite personnel didn't change over 6 months, 8 months. The agendas are all exactly the same. And so finally, it culminated to a head for me. And I finally asked in a meeting, I said, what exactly are we getting paid for? And I even told him, I'm like, I'm not really sure how many, passive or yes men type of leaders that you guys are used to dealing with, but we have absolutely made no meaningful change. And I'm just not okay with that. And if we're not gonna actively fix issues, then I really don't understand what exactly our purpose is. Why do we have a committee? Why are we meeting? Why are we taking time out of our day to do this just to throw around a bunch of corporate jargon and make us feel like we've accomplished something and we walk away from the meeting and nothing's changed? So that was the hard part for me. And coming out of that position, which, like I said, was probably at that time was the pinnacle of my career. At one point, I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll just go back to the ER. I love it. I miss it. It's flexible. It's lucrative. It works well, and it still gives me time to work on side projects. And for a while, I was going to do that. Even to the point that I was offered because I was a travel doc. I did locum, so I traveled a lot. And once I had done so many shifts, over a year's worth of shifts at this facility, they had actually offered me like $100,000 sign-on bonus, which is unheard of for ER for relocation. And I really had to sit with that. And at the end of the day, I made a hard decision to choose the entrepreneurial path and my integrity over a paycheck. Because I chose, I was building something what I thought was meaningful and got the paycheck and got the notoriety and the prestige and the titles. And it was probably the most morally injured I think I've ever been in my career. So that's when I just made a decision. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to start over and build this from the ground up. I'm going to build a schedule that makes sense for me. I'm going to build a schedule that allows me to get involved meaningfully in medicine. And that still allows me, that still, at the end of the day, I still love what I do. I don't ever want to get to the
Yeah.
point where I don't love what I do.
Yeah, I think this is a very important point you made here. The fact that at some point in our lives, we need to make a decision between what we really want to do versus what we get paid.
Hmm.
And most of the time, I think it's better to choose what you really want to do because that's going to carry you away the whole time along
Absolutely.
the journey, rather than just like in your case, one-time bonus, sign-on bonus, and
Right.
for the moment. And that's what probably success is based on for many people, just to be able to continue your journey and your motivation and your consistency to do what you want to do.
Exactly.
Um, so what's the present status of your enterprise right now?
So, clarify for me what you mean by
Like
that.
what are your goals? What do you want to do this year? What's present in your professional life?
Gotcha. So right now, I am the top of the goals at this point are to continue to build out the leadership and the coaching because that's something I recently started this year.
Hmm.
And I've had a few clients and it's been amazing. It's been and they're helping me. You know, it's good because they're helping me. You know, kind of build a better curriculum. I initially started with writing books and I had finished 4 books. I hadn't published any of them yet because I decided at that point, you know, I don't know that I want to just push all my books out to Amazon. I think I'm
Yeah.
actually going to do like a publishing arm of this thing, you know? So I'm talking to a financial advisor and I'm like, hey, you know, I think I want to publish internally. I want to own this. I want to, you know, so it really has, it's shaped my entire mindset on even when I start a new endeavor. So those are the things that are on deck. But right now it's mostly freelance consulting. And I just take it on I honestly don't even market for it. People find me on LinkedIn or, you know, they know me through someone else and they shoot me an email and they're like, hey, would you be willing? I'm also listed in a few expert witness databases. So I do a lot of chart review for law firms, you know, in that capacity. But the bulk of my work right now is doing advisory work and some telehealth online. So, which is nice because that's allowed me a lot of flexibility with
Hmm.
traveling and a lot of extra bandwidth to actually build out some of these other things that I'm working on.
Yeah, that's great. Awesome.
Yeah.
So tell me what exactly are your plans to go with this journey of yours? Like, what's the final goal? What do you want to actually accomplish with this?
Absolutely. So, if we're talking about final goals, is I would like to build out or design either a a training path or some type of a course that is accessible to everybody where you learn how to make sustainable change by making the hard decisions from the very beginning. And I know a lot of people are kind of going in that direction, but from a clinical, legal, mental health and even a faith-based perspective, there's a lot of things that can kind of jumble that. And so I would ideally like to have, of course, my books be a big part of it. And honestly, I would like for writing to be a big chunk of what I do because that's just something I truly enjoy doing.
That's
And so
great.
that's kind of like the ultimate goal as far as like where a lot of my energy goes. But also to continue doing the things that I'm doing now on a larger scale. You know, I go and do public speaking, you know, at this point, and I do it on almost anything. I mean, people literally will look at my CV and they're like, hey, can you do a general health talk? Or sometimes they'll say, hey, can you come talk to our group about, you know, burnout and moral injury? Because that's something I've dealt with a lot. And so it's really afforded me, you know, even when you go through those rough things, it's afforded me the opportunity to kind of get involved in a lot of different areas. And so that would be my ideal would be to have the coaching and the books and the public speaking kind of be a big, you know, at least I would say 50 to 60% of what I do. And then the rest of it, of course, will still be clinical medicine because I genuinely love clinical medicine. So,
Awesome. I just want
yeah.
to ask you something that you're probably gonna, you know, consider it's a silly question, but what does success mean to you? And if you think you achieve that, that's a great answer, and I think you did already. But if not, what does it look for you? Like what does it mean to achieve that?
Ooh, that is not a silly question. It's actually a very difficult question because there's so many different ways. For me, success is waking up every single morning and absolutely loving what I do. That's it. If I can walk away from the day and I've helped someone or I've helped some company or some law firm or some physician or some group or some committee walk away enlightened or, you know, more knowledgeable than they did, you know, before the interaction. It's like that's successful. And I've learned to redefine success. If you'd asked me that 5 to 10 years ago, my answer would have been very different. But right now that's got to be the best of all my worlds at this point. Primarily because the way that I've designed and structured my life now allows me to dive into some other passions, one of which is medical missions. I do a lot of traveling and medical mission work, and you got to have the flexibility to do it, you know. And the reason I didn't do it early in my career is because, well, I can't take off work, and I can't do this, and I can't, and I'm answering to all these different places and policies, and now I'm just like, you know what, I do the trips that I want to do. I've done 3 trips this year. I have 4 planned for next year. And I love it. I love the flexibility. And that's also part of success for me is being able to dive into my passions and not just be married to a career.
Excellent answer.
Yeah,
It's funny how, like you said, the definition of success changes with age, right? And your professional experience, because obviously early in your career, you're probably thinking more of a financial aspect of the
absolutely.
success. And then the more you go towards your peak career, you move towards things like, what exactly means to you to be successful means that you have more passions that you can accomplish, you have more time to do things that you wanted to do,
Right.
give back to the community, like you said, you do medical missions, um, and then the whole perspective changes from the financial side to the actual accomplishment, self-accomplishment side.
Yes.
But if you are here in your moment in career right now, and if you would look back to your beginnings, what kind of advice would you give to yourself with what you've been through and what you know right now?
Oh man, that's an even harder question. Oh, if I had to go back and talk to 11 years ago to brand new, fresh out of residency me, um, I would tell myself that you're not going to ever regret a shift you didn't pick up. but you but you definitely want to make sure that you're taking time and pouring into the people and the places and the things that are most important to you. Um, and that's primarily because when I was out of residency, I was like every other doc, especially ER docs. I was broke and hungry for whatever I can get. And so for the first couple of years, I mean, I worked 25, 26 days out of a month. And this is, being at a hospital where I worked 7 on, 7 off with another doc. Even on my 7 off, I was working either picking up extra at that hospital or I was working somewhere else. I mean, I was always working all the time. And that's really, it cost me valuable time with my family. It cost me relationships. I think that could have probably progressed differently. But when that is your focus, when you got that tunnel vision, it really kind of clouds everything else. And it sounds cheesy and cliche, but if I could go back and tell myself anything, that's exactly what I would tell myself: is take time, invest in your passions. I'm a lot older now than I was then, of course, and I don't think it's ever too late to be your best self. But I wish I could have had that youth, that energy from my youth to put into the things that I truly enjoy doing. So that's probably one of the main things I would tell myself.
Very nice. Very
Yeah.
nice. So, Dr. Glass, how can people reach out to you, learn more about your passions, your writings, your
Yeah,
practice, and your
absolutely.
teachings?
Yes, so I do have a website, and that's primarily where people can go and they can request info. I mean, I have a contact form and they can request info. There's a menu of services that I offer, and then I do offer like a general consultation, just because I do offer lots of different types of coaching and different things like that. I offer just a general 15-minute, like, hey, I'm not sure what I need, but this is what I'm looking for, and then I can kind of help, come up with something that I can offer that individual. And my website serves both individuals looking for coaching and for companies looking for advisory work. I have it all there, and it's very my the website is my initials and credentials.com, cskluttzdoj.com, and that's probably the easiest way to get a hold of me.
Very nice.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for coming over. I appreciate your time, and I hope people would reach out to you for some advice in this field, because I think you're a person who is very resourceful. We can learn more about these aspects from you, and I wish people would reach out.
absolutely.
Thank
I
you so
appreciate
much.
the opportunity. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Are you a busy medical professional striving to excel in life and work? Stellar Success Podcast brings you the habits and insights of top leaders in medicine and beyond. Discover strategies for balance, growth, and fulfillment in every episode. Follow us on Instagram at Stellar Success Podcast for daily inspiration. Start your journey to success today. Subscribe to the YouTube channel now.
That's a wrap on Stellar Success, Leveling Up for Medical Pros with Dr. Tudor Francu. Interested in joining us? Go to stellarsuccesspodcast.com/guest to apply. Stay stellar and level up.